And when that does happen, the Chicago Fire Department gets out with their boats very quickly, usually the next morning, to break up that ice, keep this passageway navigable down to the Mississippi. Bertrand Goldberg, he was not only inspiring how people should live with amenities in that home complex, also where in the city they should live. When River City went up in the 80s, this neighborhood, the South Loop, not popular for residential living at all. Bertrand Goldberg actually envisioned this much larger. He pictured it snaking all the way back to Roosevelt Road, that bridge near where it turned around. This is the only portion he was ever able to secure funding for. Today, you have a new condo tower going up on every corner. New construction here, this is called the Reed, again, new condo tower here in the South Loop neighborhood. It is the latest addition in this whole development along the South Branch. This whole development is called River Line. My favorite thing about River Line is that they actually started with that Riverwalk Park. Even the real estate developers are starting to see the value in the Chicago River as a recreational waterfront. And again, that's a change from our city's entire past. Straight ahead of us, you have a black building, has a big white frame and a series of rectangular gray balconies popping out of the side. Some people say it looks like it was written in Morse code. It was not. It's actually an example of contextualism. This is 235 Van Buren. It is from 2010. The context that this building is in conversation with is actually the traffic on Ida B. Wells Drive below. It's meant to replicate cars stuck in traffic. It's actually very beautiful. If you find yourself caught in a jam, you could just take a look up at 235 Van Buren and see your situation reflected back at you in a very meaningful way. Further over to the right in the distance, you have another great example of Art Deco. This one has a big statue up at the top. That building with the statue, that is the Chicago Board of Trade building. The Chicago Board of Trade building is from 1930. It was the tallest in our city at that time. That statue up at the top, that is Ceres, the Roman goddess of grain and agriculture. Ceres is on top of our Board of Trade because for most of our past, we have traded in agricultural futures. Chicago is the home of grain futures trading. This building may also look familiar to you as Wayne Enterprises from Batman Begins. Straight ahead of us, you have a peachy kind of coral colored building. It has blue glass windows and a big crown up at the top. This is 311 South Wacker. 311 South Wacker was completed in 1990. At that time, the crown was lit by 1,800 super bright fluorescent light bulbs. We have since switched over to LED. We've also learned that we have to turn the bulbs down in brightness during certain bird migration seasons. You see when migrating birds first came through, they actually mistook that crown for the moon. They got super lost. We felt super bad. So now when we know that the birds are coming through, just turn the lights down and stay out of the entire situation. Directly behind that, you have the tallest of the tall. Tallest building in the city of Chicago. This is the Willis Tower. The Willis Tower, which is commonly referred to by its original name, which is the Sears Tower. Clocks in at 1,451 feet tall, or 442 meters. This was the tallest building on the planet when it was completed to be the Sears Company's headquarters in 1974. Pretty crazy. It remained the tallest building in the world for almost 25 years until the completion of the Petronas House in Kuala Lumpur, ASEAN in 1998. This was the tallest building in the United States until 2014 with the completion of One World Trade Center in New York City. I'm going to say something about you that has never ever gotten me a second date, and that is, I want to talk to you about skyscraper antennas. I think they're rad. I think they're totally bewitching. You see the two antennas on top of the Sears Tower, although they are very tall. They're almost 29 stories tall. They actually do not get to count toward the building's official height. They are considered to be purely utilitarian. It's just technical equipment. Counter that with the spike on top of One World Trade Center. That is not called an antenna at all. That is called a spire. A spire is a decorative design choice. It is considered to be inherent to the building's overall design. Would now be One World Trade Center if the spire was not there. Therefore, it does get to count for the building's official heights. The fact of the matter complex about it, if that is what you were thinking. Super tall skyscrapers, they are measured from their first pedestrian entrance up to their tallest decorative detail. What's with the name? What are we doing here? Sears, Willis, what's going on in this town? Again, this building, 1974, constructed to be the Sears Company's headquarters, was the tallest building in the world for almost 25 years. The city of Chicago is very proud of that. It will always be the Sears Tower to us. Fast forward to the year 2009 and enter the Willis Insurance Company, which is based in the UK. They came in to lease 3 floors of the building, and for $1 million a year, they were also able to lease the naming rights. Pretty similar to how sports stadiums in the United States are freeholding, changing names. Anything can be leased or bought, names be changing. If you take a look up at the top of the building, you see 5 glass boxes jutting out into the sky up near the top of the building. Those glass boxes, that is Sky Deck, the ledge, the observation deck up at the top of the Sears. Up on the ledge, you can step out onto a glass floor. You have glass walls on all 3 sides of you, and you can feel as though you are floating over 1,200 feet in the air above downtown Chicago. From time to time, they've hosted yoga classes and events up on the ledge for people with a really warped sense of what is relaxing. 2 people throughout history have successfully scaled the outside of the Sears Tower, bottom to top. First was an American man in the 1980s. He was wearing a homemade Spider-Man suit, of course, and he used suction cups to get up to the top. History calls him Spider Dan. Second was a Frenchman in the 1990s, and he used nothing but his bare hands and toes. The Sears Tower's overall design is what offsets the sway of the wind. You will notice that the building is not one single column flying toward the sky, but rather a group of 9 columns bundled together that rise to various heights. Only 2 reach its full height of 110 stories. It is rumored that the architects at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, led by Chief Engineer Dr. Fazlur Khan of Bangladesh, they were playing with cigarettes when they came up with this design idea. They noticed that if you just stack one cigarette directly on top of another one, that will bend or sway in the winds. However, if you group a few cigarettes together at the bottom and have the structure get slimmer as it rises toward the top, then you have a much more solid base to stand on. That technology is very simply called bundled columns, sometimes called bundled tubes, and it is also how the large Khalifa offsets the sway of the wind in Dubai. That being said, on a very, very windy day, the Sears Tower can still safely sway up to 18 inches in any direction. 18 inches is enough to slosh the water out of the toilet bowls. So I'm not really sure what's so safe about all of this. That striking antenna pointed too far home. Before the record, the 2 antennas on top of the Sears Tower are about the same height as the Black Box building over on the left-hand side of our road. It's the flashiest moment of this tour. As we head back into Art Deco Canyon, this time the Civic Opera Building is on our right. The Civic Opera Building is also from 1929, just like its across-the-water neighbor. This was designed by the firm Graham, Anderson, Probst & White. This firm also designs the Wrigley Building and the Old Chicago Post Office. This Civic Opera Building is the permanent home of the Lyric Opera Company, second largest opera company in the United States. The entire building is shaped like a throne or an armchair, which is very strategically and very purposefully facing west, away from New York City. Again, inferiority complex, don't be silly. I'm very obvious about the lettering on the side of this building. They did not spell it wrong. They just decided to spell it in Latin, just for fun, just for aesthetics. The Latin alphabet does not contain the letter U. This lettering was just added in the last 40 years or so. It's actually not part of the building's original design. Next on the right, one of the most recently completed skyscrapers of our tour. This is the Bank of America building from November of 2020. The Bank of America building was designed by Gatch Partners, which is the same firm that designed the Sharp & Pencil 150 North Riverside. Jim Gatch, chief architect, he has been quoted saying it is more important how a skyscraper touches the ground than how it touches the sky. And you definitely see that mentality at play in these 2 riverfront designs. Because of the timing of this building, it also features pandemic-friendly technology. They were able to go back and add in walk-through temperature scanners, upgraded air filtration systems, antimicrobial cladding on all of the glass doors, and a smartphone app that will call an elevator to your desired floor without you having to touch a thing. Sparticle pre-pandemic architectural technology. There's a building going up in the Fulton Market neighborhood of Chicago with the world's first foot-operated elevator. The future is now. Back over to 150 North Riverside. This building uses very interesting technology to offset the sway of the winds. We talked about the blow-through floor for the St. Regis, bundled columns for the Sears Tower. This building uses a system called inertial slosh dampers. Inertial slosh dampers, sometimes called tuned liquid slosh dampers. All the way up at the top of this building on the inside, there are 12 giant tanks holding 160,000 gallons of water. How it works is this: when the wind pushes the building in one direction, the water sloshes in the other direction, keeping that building nice and straight upright. Almost works like a giant shock absorber. There are some buildings in the world that have a giant pendulum inside, trying to achieve that counterweight objective. It's a similar idea, but with water up at the top. Straight ahead of us, as we head back into Wolf Point, you can see they are completing the third of the trio of Wolf Point towers. Wolf Point West went up first in 2016. Wolf Point East completed in 2020. Both of those are residential. And now Wolf Point South is going up between the two. It will be the tallest of the three buildings, and it will be the only commercial of the three buildings. It will be called the Salesforce Tower. Kind of interesting, this piece of land straight ahead of us, it's actually owned by the Kennedy family, the family of President John F. Kennedy. His father, Joseph P. Kennedy, purchased this piece of land along with Merchandise Mart back in 1945. The family sold Merchandise Mart in 1998, but they did maintain ownership of that piece of land there. Curved green glass building, this is 333 West Wacker, or the Nuveen building. They have a very strong attention to detail. It is also Ferris Bueller's dad's office building. It's another great example of contextualism from 1983. The curve and the color of the building mimic the curve and the color of the river below. Underneath the Nuveen building is New Public Art. This is called The People in Your Neighborhood. These are all real Chicagoans, CTA drivers, postal service workers, writers, bartenders. This was designed by local street artist Don't Fret and just installed in 2020. The People in Your Neighborhood marks the westernmost point of the Chicago River Walk. The Chicago River Walk was completed in 2016. It spans 1.25 miles. It can get you from here at Wolf Point all the way out to Lake Michigan along the south bank of the main branch of the Chicago River. It's divided into distinct sections at each of the bridges. My favorite work of public art along the Riverwalk actually cannot be seen in the daytime. It is called Arts on the Mart. Art on the Mart is the world's largest display of projected public art. What happens is after the sun goes down, they take giant works of light and digital art and project them across the entire face of Merchandise Mart, which is 2.5 acres in size. This program just got started in 2018. It's been super popular with residents and visitors. Over on the right, you can see the projector system for Art on the Mart housed in this big gray box. This projector system used a digital laser mapping technology to map out the surface of the building so that no light ever shines into the windows of Merchandise Mart. Art on the Mart takes place every single night. Right now it starts at 9 o'clock p.m. and then runs again at 9:30. 2 chances every night, 9 and 9:30, Art on the Mart. This portion of the Riverwalk is a great place to catch it. This is called the Jetty. The Jetty is also a popular place to fish. These stainless steel rods popping up there are supporting floating gardens called the Fish Hotels. The roots of the Fish Hotels attract wildlife to come and spawn. You can fish, but you sure should not eat what you catch. Toss that back in. I wouldn't even hold it for 2 hours. Toss that back in. Coming up on the right, they have a highly reflective blue glass building. This one has channels put into the space that create sky-high patios. This is 111 West Wacker. 111 West Wacker is a residential tower from 2014. It is designed in a style called sliced minimalism. Sliced minimalism is a next-generation contemporary style. What does that mean? It means you should come back on this tour in 25 years, and it will be led by one of my children, who will tell you how sliced minimalism fits into the American historical context of the 2010s, which we all have not finished making sense of just yet. Right after 111 West Wacker is 77 West Wacker, the one that looks like a Greek or a Roman temple. It's from 1992, Spanish architect Ricardo Bofill. For a time, it was the world's headquarters for United Airlines. United Airlines is the tower in 2012. Right next door to that, my personal favorite building of the store, the short, stout, concrete 55 West Wacker. term brutalism actually comes from the French term béton brut, which means raw concrete. Raw untreated concrete is the hallmark of the brutalism design. What do I like about them? Unique cores of concrete. Most brutalism buildings are about 60 years old. How do we maintain unique cores of concrete over time? We don't know yet. I like the mystery. Ahead of us, in the distance, you have a forest green colored building with a golden top. This green and gold building is the Carbide and Carbon building. The Carbide and Carbon building is from 1929. It was designed by the Burnham Brothers firm, two sons of World's Fair chief architect Daniel Burnham. They were working on this bad boy at the height of Prohibition, or the era in the United States when alcohol was illegal. Now, I don't know about all of you, but when I am told that I cannot have something, I think about that thing a lot. We suspected the Burnham brothers were thinking a lot about a champagne bottle when they designed the Carbide and Carbon building. That golden top is surfaced with gold leaf that is roughly 1/5000th of an inch thick, half the thickness of saran wrap. Super, super thick. Closer to us on the right, we have a very ornate beige colored building. It has two rectangular pieces and a big fancy dome up at the top. This is the Jewelers building from 1927. Back in its heyday, it was a hotbed of not only jewelry merchants, but also organized crime. Hard to have one without the other in Chicago at this time. For this reason, the Jewelers building was originally outfitted with a car lift, or an elevator for your car, in order to facilitate the safe transfer of both jewels and people. The top portion of the building, the dome, was home to a restaurant called the Stratosphere Club. The Stratosphere Club is commonly rumored to have been run by Al Capone. However, that rumor is pretty easy to dispel, as the Stratosphere Club opened in 1937. Al Capone was in prison for tax evasion in 1931. The building is also very famous for having been featured in the hit Chicago documentary Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Tall, skinny white tower looks like a rocket ship. That's the Mather Tower from 1923. It was home to the Mather Stock Car Company. Two doors down, limestone structure with the cupola up at the top. That is the London Guarantee and Accident building from 1928. Today it's home to the London House Hotel. They added that glass addition in 2016. The rooftop bar at the London House Hotel was recently voted #2 rooftop bar in all of these United States. Drives us bonkers. We hate being #2 stuff, but it is a great rooftop bar. You should totally check it out. Back over on the left, between the two towers of the Wrigley building, you can see a golden yellow onion-shaped dome peeking out. That onion-shaped dome is on top of the Intercontinental Hotel. You'll have a way better view of the whole building in just a moment. The Intercontinental Hotel was originally constructed as the Medina Athletic Association, and that dome was a marketing tactic. The Shriners, they said, come, join our gym. We even have a place for you to land your blimp. You see, the Shriners thought that in the future, all of us would be floating around town by a personal blimp. Onion-shaped dome is where you just tie yours up on your way to work out. Unfortunately for the Shriners, not long after this building went up, the Hindenburg disaster went down. No blimps ever tied off on the onion-shaped dome. Next on the left after the Wrigley building is an example of French Gothic Revival design. Gothic Revival harkens back to medieval times. It's often associated with churches and cathedrals. This is not a church or a cathedral. This is the Chicago Tribune Tower. The Chicago Tribune Tower was completed in 1925, designed by a pair of New York City architects named Howells and Hood. Howells and Hood responded to the Chicago Tribune's call for the most beautiful office building in the entire world. It was a contest. The Chicago Tribune newspaper staff worked inside this building from 1925 until 2018. Staff moved out 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't know what year it is. And that condo conversion is now complete. This building was converted into a luxury condominium. This is not the only change plans here though. They're also adding a super tall skyscraper to the eastern portion of the property. This super tall skyscraper will be hotel and residential, and when it is complete, it will be the new second tallest building in the city of Chicago. Sears Tower is 1451. This will be 1422. Closer to us, you can see right through the Chicago flagship Apple Store from 2017. That is low iron, load-bearing glass in those walls, which along with the 4 marble columns inside support a super, super lightweight carbon fiber roof. Ahead on the left, you can see the Rainbow Peacock shining up at the top of the Chicago NBC Tower. This building is super, super significant on our skyline, as this is where we used to film Jerry Springer. This building might remind you of Art Deco. It's got vertical racing stripes on his face. The style is called Eco Deco. Late 80s, early 90s, they started to harp on those Art Deco design ideas, added some contemporary ones as well. This building is from 1989. It was designed by Adrian Smith of Burj Khalifa fame. For this design, it was greatly influenced by the architect Raymond Hood. Raymond Hood was half of the team behind the Chicago Tribune Tower. Raymond Hood also designed 30 Rockefeller Plaza, the NBC headquarters in New York City. You can see elements of both of those buildings at play in Adrian Smith's design here. As we start to work our way back out toward Navy Pier, I do need to tell you the number one most amazing and stupefying thing about this body of water that I call home, and that is the fact that this is the only river on planet Earth that flows away from its mouth. This river flows backwards all the time. That is not natural, that is a feat of human innovation. As I have hinted at, for many, many years, we treated this river like an indiscriminate dumping ground. It was our favorite spot for meatpacking viscera, factory byproduct, sheep dung, human excrement, anything we didn't want on any particular day, just toss it in the river. It is said at this time, late 1800s, a chicken could cross from one bay to the other without getting her feet wet, which obviously begs the question, why did the chicken cross the river? Because she could. I digress. This solid waste river business was a problem, as this river used to flow out to our natural supply of fresh drinking water, Lake Michigan. By the late 1880s, we actually became the cholera capital of the world, which is exquisite. We love to be the best at stuff. However, we did recognize that being the best at having cholera not going to be an effective way forward. So they decided to run the river backwards. In 1900, they completed construction on the Sanitary and Ship Canal. This is a 28-mile-long canal. It connects the South Branch of the Chicago River directly to the Des Plaines River in a lower spot. That is how it works. The canal is a lot lower than the Chicago River, much lower than Lake Michigan. They dug downward, and when they connected the river to the canal, water fell 24 feet. To this day, the canal uses the force of gravity to suck that Chicago River water backwards down the South Branch. This effectively cleaned up our drinking water supply, and we were able to live happily ever after on the banks of the Chicago River, though to this day we do not swim in its water. It's not because the river reversal didn't work. The river reversal was very successful. We got lake water flowing right through here. The problem is that we don't have enough stormwater storage, so sometimes we get heavy rain. Some of that sewage still ends up in the river. That's why you don't swim in the river. Stick to the beaches. The beaches are along Lake Michigan. They're safe, happy, healthy, fun. This fountain over on our left, this is the Centennial Fountain. It celebrates the reversal of the river. When this fountain is on, and it actually has not been turned back on since the start of the pandemic, it actually shoots a giant arc of water over the river every hour, on the hour, for 5 minutes. Boat tours used to be that much more exciting. Is the captain going to stop? I didn't know. You didn't know. We were really in it together. Coming up on the left, you'll start to see a curving black glass building. Some people say this building looks like a fidget spinner. Some people say it looks like a flask. This is Lake Point Tower. Lake Point Tower was completed in 1968. At that time, it was the tallest residential building in the entire world, a title it also held for 25 years. Lake Point Tower was designed by two students of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Their names were George Schipperin and John Heinrich. They took that idea of the stark black glass modernist style building and they added their own twist, which is the curving facade, which maximizes waterfront views for all of the residents inside. The top portion of the building, the disc, it is home to a French restaurant called Cité. It does not rotate, it is stationary, but it is up for sale if you're in the market for a stationary French restaurant. My brother found the Zillow listing for Cité, $4.7 million. The photo on the Zillow listing was a picture of the entire building with just a little arrow pointing at the top. Best of all, it's being listed as a 5-bedroom condo. Again, right now, it is an operating French restaurant. This is a pretty cool condo. You probably have like 17 toilets. Many famous Chicagoans have lived at Lake Point Tower throughout the years. Sammy Sosa, Scottie Pippen, Alice Cooper, Kurt Russell, and Goldie Hawn. Not Oprah. Oprah did not live here. Oprah lived at Water Tower Place over on the Magnificent Mile above the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Over here on your left, behind that wooden boarding, you'll recall at the beginning of the tour, I mentioned a giant hole in the ground, 76 feet deep, where Santiago Calatrava, Chicago's fire was supposed to be. Back in there, I promise you, there's a big old hole, and I do not want you to try and check it out. Ahead of us, you have a fabulous view of the shining beacon of Navy Pier, which is, of course, the Centennial Ferris wheel. The Centennial Ferris wheel was new in 2016 to celebrate 100 years of Navy Pier. We like to get a new Ferris wheel about every 25 years just to stay abreast of Ferris wheel technology as well as we like to keep one here to celebrate the fact that we invented them. The world's very first Ferris wheel debuted in the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. This Ferris wheel that we see today, this is 196 feet tall. The original was 264. It was enormous. Every car on the original Ferris wheel was a converted Pullman train car and could fit 60 people. 60. People saw it, they were like, no thank you, it's 1893, we'd rather just die here on the ground. So George Ferris, the designer, and his wife, they had to go up first with a little hanky, be like, we're fine. And then it became one of the most popular attractions at the fair. I think this was helped a lot by the fact that there was a bar in every cabin. Blue House, this is the Marine Safety Center. It's owned by the city. It's where you keep the Coast Guard and the fire department rescue boats. It is a firehouse with a Marine unit. Straight ahead of us, where you see the Grand Watchtower and the big steel gates, you can see doors are opening riverside at the Chicago Harbor Lock. This lock system is how we match boats up to the height of the lake or down to the height of the river. Right now, Lake Michigan is about 5 feet higher than the Chicago River. This lock system is super important, among other things. It does keep our city from flooding right down the middle. It's just one chamber, 600 feet long. It was constructed in 1938. It's free to pass through the lock. You do not have to pay. You just have to follow the rules. And that seems to be difficult enough for a lot of the boats that I watch go through here in the summertime. Second busiest recreational lock in the country. I don't know where the first busiest is, but I'm sure we wish we could crush them.